Hi, I'm Beth from Restyled Pieces Boutique. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am taking this vintage dresser. It had some veneer damage and it looks like a patchwork quilt, really, to me. So I don't really like how it looks. I'm going to keep some of it wood and some of it I'm going to paint. So if you want to watch this makeover, stay tuned. So let's jump right into this project. I always like to turn my pieces over upside down and vacuum them well and clean well underneath this piece. I'm going to try to sand some of this old stain off the underside of my piece. I like my undersides to be nice and clean and look professional. Sometimes you can't get all that stain and stuff off, but I'm going to do the best that I can later on. So yeah, I had taken the wheels off. They were falling off pretty much anyway. I'm just cleaning this up with Pure Power from Farmhouse Paint. It is a cleaner and degreaser, and I'm using a little brush to get into the details and then wiping it clean and then rinsing it with plain water. So I get that all nice and clean, and then I'm checking out the trim. There is nice, beautiful detailed trim, but this one's broken. There's also one on the bottom drawer broken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my amazing putty mold, and I'm going to make a mold of the other side, which is the good side of the trim that looks identical. And then I'm going to use casting resin to cast another piece of trim that I'm going to replace that other piece with, the broken piece with. So now I'm taking off my hardware, and I like to keep my hardware. This piece was missing some hardware, and I've looked high and low to try to find the exact hardware. Couldn't find it anywhere except for eBay, I think, and it was super expensive. So I'm going to replace all those drawer ring pulls. Here I'm making a little kind of like a little frame to put my Bondo in, because I'm going to have to fix this chunk that came out of the back leg. So I'm just taping some craft sticks, popsicle sticks, whatever you want to call them, and all up, and so I can put my Bondo into that spot. So I'm using wood filler Bondo. You can use all-purpose Bondo. It's good for wood as well. It's a two-part putty, and you mix up the putty with the hardener and mix that up until it's one solid color. And then I'm just going to spread that into that framework. It will take about 20 to 30 minutes to dry, and then I can sand it smooth. So here I'm just taking off the molds that I made with that amazing putty. I'm going to fill those with resin and put those and take the old mold off and replace them on these two drawers. I'm not showing you the whole process because it was very detailed. So I do have another video about creating new trim. I will put that up in the right-hand corner of the screen, and you can click on that link to watch that video. So here I am cutting some supports for the inside of the dresser. It was a little wobbly and it just needed some shoring up and supports. So I'm using my Craig Jig pocket hole tool, and I'm making some pocket holes in those short boards, and I'm screwing those into the insides of the dresser, under the top, into the sides, so that it can really stabilize that dresser. So I had measured twice and cut once, and the boards are fitting really well. And then I will just screw them on to the sides of each of the frame, the sides of the frame of the dresser. So I called my husband in to give him an extra pair of hands because it's just helpful when you're trying to screw those into the frame. So here's a little glimpse of the resin molds that I made. I know I told you I do have a video on that is a full video, but here's what they look like once they are primed and painted. You're not going to notice any difference at all. So this one was a little long and I had trouble casting it, so I had to use 2 pieces, and I'll just put some wood filler into that little line where I added the extra short piece, and you'll never be able to tell. Card trick here to check to make sure if any of my drawers are rubbing, and yes they are. When I can't get that card in there and slide it back and forth easily, I know that if I paint on top of that ridge, it's going to really rub off the paint, so I always sand that down or scrape it. In this case I needed to do some scraping, and I go back and check over and over again to make sure those fit, and the card that I put in between slides very easily, so I can paint and not worry about them rubbing later. Besides, because there was some sloppy stain from whoever had stained this piece previously, so I wanted that nice and clean. Here I'm sanding down the dark wood parts on the drawers because I want to stain those in a dark walnut. I'm going to paint the other parts of the drawers. So this will be a paint stain combo, and I'm using a 120 grit with my Surf Pret 3x4 electric ray, sanding those down to bare wood so then I can stain. The veneer has a really pretty wood pattern, and I'm hoping that everything sands well and I don't have any problems when I'm sanding down this veneer, because sometimes veneer is very thin, and when you're sanding the finish down, you can accidentally sand a little bit of the veneer. We'll see how this goes. 2 down, 4 more to go. Those turned out beautifully. The little drawers at the top turned out beautifully. Oh, see in the middle? There was a spot on one of those drawers and a couple little spots on another drawer where the veneer was just so thin and it just came right through. But hopefully I can fix that. But before you fix that, you need to stain. So I'm using my dark walnut gel stain from Varathane. I've got all my supplies, and I'm using an old sock. So I just put gloves on, use an old sock, dip that in the gel stain, and off I go. I don't really spend much time letting it soak in. So I just rub it on apply it with my sock. And then I take a blue shop towel and I just wipe off the excess. It looks a little dull right now, but when all is said and done and it's top coated, it's going to look beautiful. This is an oil-based stain, and I do prefer the ease of a water-based stain, but they're just so much harder to work with in my opinion. And the depth and the richness that you get from the oil-based stains, I just prefer oil-based stains. I know you have to wait 3 days to let it dry completely before you can top coat it with a water-based top coat. Now, if you use an oil-based top coat, it just has to be dry, like overnight or something. So here's all the drawers. You can see that spot there that the veneer came through on that drawer that I'm going to have to repair eventually. I wish I'd have done this sooner, taken off this trim when I sanded and all that, but I just decided I need to take this off because that will be painted and it would be so much easier to paint it if I just take the trim off. So here I'm scuff sanding and I'm roughing up the surface and getting off some of that old finish so that my primer and paint will stick well and it will adhere successfully. Scuff sanding is key to having a lasting finish, and then I will rinse that off. I'll spray it and wipe it off with just plain water, and then I'll be ready for the next step. I love using these squishy pads. They're foam flexible pads on my Surf Prep 3x4 Ray electric sander because they just get into all those details. And now I'm going to be taping up. You saw that I taped up the details before when I was staining, but now I have to tape up the stained portion. So this is like 3 or 4 days later. I went and did a bunch of stuff and I had a lot of activities and things to do. So it's really dry. So I'm not worried about, I'm putting that delicate paint on, or delicate tape on first. That's the purple tape, that lavender tape. And then I'm just taping the rest of it up with plastic. I know people are like, well, it takes so long. Why don't you just hand paint? But I love the finish of spraying and how smooth and more factory finish it is. So it doesn't bother me to tape up the drawers. So I can tape them up and just stick them in and spray when I spray the whole piece. The backboard was in kind of bad shape, the wood in the back, and so I got this hardwood board and we're cutting it to size so that I can put it on the back. That will also help to support the dresser even further. It's very sturdy now after we put all those supports in it, but this will help shore it up even more and it'll give it a nice finished look on the back side of the dresser. And here I'm just using my Craftsman brad nailer and going around the edges and stapling that on. So checking out how sturdy it is. Great. It's not moving hardly at all. I'm so happy that about those supports and that backboard, and it just made such a difference. Now I'm just throwing some Scotch tape and plastic on the back of my hardwood panel. I have learned, and I learned again, and it wasn't a big deal, but next time I would use the delicate tape, which is that lavender tape, instead of this green frog tape on that board because it kind of roughs up where the green tape is when you pull it off. So it wasn't bad, it wasn't a big deal, and it wasn't enough to worry about it, but I just like it to look even smoother and more finished. And so next time I would use the sensitive tape, the delicate tape. So I'm here I am taping up the feet because I want to keep them the dark walnut color. I think that will go perfectly with the dark walnut I put on the drawers. So I'm using foil and my green frog tape. And there we go. Everything's taped up and ready to go, but I found a little repair. One of the detailed trim pieces on one of the drawers had a little tiny piece missing, so I'm using some quick wood. It's an epoxy putty, and I'm just molding that around into that piece and making it to try to fit perfectly and look like one of the pieces of the trim, and I'll come back and sand it later. And again, you'll never know it was there. So I found a pretty deep gash in the side of the leg. So I use my epoxy putty on this too, my quick wood, and it just works better for deeper gashes. Now I'm taking the Bondo spot putty It's a glazing and spot putty, and I'm just filling in all those little dings and little dents and little scratches. This is good for more shallow scratches and dents. So I let that dry, I think probably overnight. And this is the next day, I think. And I'm just sanding all of that smooth, all of those places that I repaired and made smooth. I'm just sanding it to make sure that my paint goes on well and it hides those dings and dents. Here I've decided that I need to get in between some of these details because I put some Bondo spot putty on there and some quick wood, and I need to make sure that nothing that got into the crevices shows up when I go to paint. So all these supplies that I'm using are listed in my description underneath the video, and you can find them on my Amazon shop. Most things you can find on my Amazon shop. These are little sanding contour sponges. Well, they're rubber actually, and I'm just sanding those parts with those contour grips is what they're called. Now I'm priming with my Kills Restoration Primer. It is one of my favorite primers. It just goes on so smoothly. It covers bleed through really well. It just makes a nice, even, smooth surface. So when I lay down my paint, I have the best possible finish. And that little piece of trim that I took off the bottom, I just attached it to a box, and here I am priming it. So that's done. I attached these because otherwise I couldn't open the drawers. So I forgot I covered up the holes, and I couldn't like stick a little piece of screwdriver or something in it to open the drawers. So I attached those green tabs at the top. I also noticed a couple places I needed to fill. Those were minor, so I filled those and I sanded that smooth. And now I'm putting on this beautiful Wise Owl 1 hour enamel color in dark forest. This paint goes on so smoothly. It has great coverage. It has great adhesion. It is so durable. You do the scratch test the next day and it is just so durable. I love this color, love this paint. It is so easy to spray. And now this two-tone look takes a lot of taping off areas that you need to paint or that you need to stain, or in this case, I am top coating it. So I'm just taping up the areas of the painted parts, and then I will be able to top coat. I'm just using some of that delicate lavender tape from Scotch, and then I'm using some plastic wrap, and on top of the plastic wrap, I just use some frog tape, and it's gonna work out great. I'm using Farmhouse Paint Pro products, and I'm using their top coat in satin. It's called Clear Coat. And I'm going to do 2 coats eventually, but I'm doing the first coat now, letting it dry well, and then I have to do my repairs. Here's a couple of the little spots that came through. Actually, I really don't think they're sand throughs. Like, I don't know why they showed up because they're super smooth, but you know, who knows? I'm not sure. Maybe they were just scratches, deep scratches. So I'm using the lightest color that kind of matches the lightest color I see in the drawer. I'm using Mohawk Blend All sticks. Those are in the description too. Mohawk Blend All sticks. And I'm using my lightest color, and it looks scary at first, but you just keep blending and blending it with your finger. I wiped off a little excess off the outside because I didn't like how it looked. And in between applications, I spray it with Mohawk Clear Lacquer. That will also be in my description down at the bottom. It is a clear spray, kind of like a top coat. It is a top coat, or can be. And I just sprayed a little bit, let it dry so I can make sure that when I'm doing my repairs, the surrounding areas, I can make sure what color that is, and it can set in what I've already done so I can do the next layer. It's all about layering the different colors and blending them, and you just keep working on it and looking at the surrounding grain and the surrounding colors, and eventually you will get there. So while some of the spray of the lacquer is drying, I pulled up that second drawer and I'm working on the burn through veneer on that drawer. I'm just going through back and forth between the two drawers and all of the areas. I do a layer, I spray, I go to the next section, and I work on the different colors and just trying to get everything to blend in well. I've used these on just really minor edges before of drawers, but I've never done big sections like this before. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it all works out. Gradually, with patience and time, it just gradually blends in more and more, and you start to see so much progress, which is very exciting. So I sprayed all the spots one more time. On the camera, it looks like it's not blended great, but really it's, by the time I put that top coat on and it blends it all together even more, the sheens all together, it's going to look great, and people will never be able to know that that was really there without knowing it was there before. So here I'm using Restore a Finish because I've unwrapped my legs. I've painted my piece. I've unwrapped those legs, and this Restore a Finish just, it's magic. That's all I can say. I'm using some quadruple zero steel wool, and I put the Restore a Finish on there, and I just rub on those parts, and then I wait for it to dry for about an hour, and then I put Howard's Feed and Wax on top of that. I'm not going to show you the rest because I want to save something for the end. Here's how it started, and here's how it turned out. Oh my goodness. The drawer liners I put in were just perfect for this piece. There's the feet that I finished up with the Howard's products. That beautiful Wise Owl color, I just love it. Thank you for watching today. I hope you will subscribe to my channel. Just hit that subscribe button down below and you'll get notified when my videos come out. Until next time, see you later.